Well, and the experience I had trying to demonstrate to pharmacists and to pharmacies, we did studies with pharmacies who made medication errors, serious errors, and were able to demonstrate that on this battery of tests, those individuals who made the errors compared to a control group of pharmacists scored significantly poorly, particularly in something like working memory, because they just weren't able to keep a lot of things in their head at the one time. And a pharmacist's job is one which is very dependent on being able to keep in mind that they're filling a prescription at the same time that they have to deal with a customer, at the same time that there's a phone call. There's all of these situations that are occurring. Anyway, our tests were really appropriate in being able to raise red flags about individuals who were going to have trouble. And so we even talked to large pharmaceutical chains at the directors of personnel level. And the issue is they didn't like our tests, A, because of the time, and B, because there was no face validity.
Right. They didn't look like, yeah.
They didn't look like what a pharmacist was doing.
Right. Yeah, and so that, as Bob pointed out, that's known as face validity. The test looks like it's doing what it says to be doing, and lots of accurate psychological tests don't have that quality. So we also started to understand more about the political landscape on the corporate front in America, and also why innovative technologies are difficult to get adopted. I mean, first of all, if you're going to go out and sell something to a corporation, you have to actually talk to the people who can make decisions, and that is not an easy thing to do, and that's almost never middle management. And before people think that I'm down on middle managers, I should also point out that they have every reason to be leery of risk. So I remember one company that we dealt with, they were growing by like 100 employees a month. They couldn't keep up, and they really needed a technology to screen their applicants before interviews. And our technology was perfectly situated to manage this. But we wanted to charge them, I think it was $30 a test or something. I think they had a budget of $5. And we said, look, we just can't do it for $5. There's just no utility in this whatsoever for us. And we already demonstrated that you'll get like a 500 to 1 return on investment at the price we're charging. Why the hell wouldn't you do it? And they said, well, look, we get evaluated on how much we spend per test, and some other part of the company will be rewarded if there's more productive people. So we bear all the responsibility for the risk and get none of the reward for the outcome. And I thought, well, oh my God, that's fatal. And so many companies are set up like that. Like, you're not going to get your HR people to be incentivized to hire better employees if they get punished for taking risks when they're assessing them. And so, well, we learned a lot about how the corporate world functioned. And also, I learned, for example, why people, when they're making business deals, go play golf, for example. And the reason for that is a lot of the way that people in business evaluate one another for the possibility of working together is on the basis of personal trust and compatibility. Like, they're not doing a technical analysis of the utility of their processes. Hardly anyone thinks like that, right? Some scientists think like that some of the time, but other people use all sorts of interpersonal heuristics that we were in some ways unaware of when we were overestimating the degree to which pure logic could be used as a sales technique. In any case, Bob and I went all over the US and Canada for a long time, learning about the culture of business, feeling like complete bumbling fools, because of course we didn't really have any business experience at that point. And then two things happened. I made contact with Hideo Resi at the Founder Institute in California, and Hideo was trying to set up business schools for budding entrepreneurs all over the world, and he really wanted to predict entrepreneurial ability. And so we ran a study with him that we never published. It was a private study for us, showing that we could actually predict entrepreneurial performance with quite a high degree of accuracy. And then we started testing people all over the world with a modified version of our neuropsychological battery, a much simplified version that concentrated more on fluid intelligence, than on hypothetical prefrontal ability. And we tested tens of thousands of people for a DAO quite successfully. And that kept Exam Corps going. Now it was hard on the business front, because we pulled Daniel into the business and we tried to fund his research through grants, and we threw some private funding at him, although we didn't have a lot of money and weren't generating any capital. And that, at that time, the universities were really pushing on professors to commodify their research. Why can't the universities produce more businesses? And we went out and tried to produce a business. And what we learned was that's a hell of a lot harder than you think, because the product is only about 5% of the problem. Sales and marketing are more like 95% of the problem. And we also learned that the people who were pushing this idea that scientists should produce more businesses were people who'd never discovered anything scientifically and had no idea how difficult that was, and who had never produced a business and who had no idea how difficult that was, and then had absolutely no idea whatsoever about how difficult it was to jointly do something scientific and entrepreneurial. And the reason for that, in part, is those are very different domains. Like marketing and sales is such a big part of the industrial domain of activities compared to the scientific. You have to understand marketing and sales deeply to be successful as an entrepreneur. And also, we also ran into a fair bit of friction. It was often very emotionally demanding, because we had, in some sense, a conflict of interest, especially in relationship to Daniel, because we were trying to move ahead your scientific career and we were trying to produce a business enterprise at the same time. And it wasn't easy at all to keep the ethical line straight. How much to pay you, how much we should be concentrating on your scientific career. Now, you had got somewhat disenchanted with the idea of a scientific career, but were very interested in pursuing the development of this battery. And at the same time, just to make the story a bit more complex, a lot of the managers we were talking to, they would dispense with any interest in the predictive tests for the reasons we already described.